Today is January 16th, and the Buccos got it right this time. Andrew McCutchen is coming home. And we'll have Jason Mackey on here to talk about it all. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I am joined as always by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hey man, how we doing?
I might have just said Pittsburgh like our grandma Barker used to say. Yeah,
you did. It's good. Nothing wrong with that.
It was not intentional. Hey, a little bit here, very shortly, we are going to be joined by Jason Mackey from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And pretty excited for this. We have a very short window with him, it feels like. Maybe it'll be a full half hour. Maybe it'll be shorter than that. Really, kind of had this planned out now for about a week, and it looks like our timing is hitting with a lot of things. Yeah. So we're going to try to fit this in and get him on here, answer some questions, stuff like that. So looking forward to that. But dude, Cutch. I mean, enough said, right?
I've been talking about this.
Yeah. I have made it a point. The last 2 weeks I've said it, and I was going to say it every single episode until he signed somewhere. Because I've been making it a point to say this needs to happen, and there's no reason it's not. Now, it's happened. And I, for one, am very excited.
Yeah.
As is everyone who's a Pirates fan. I mean, this is across the board excitement. And there are some people who have things to say. To them, we say, not this weekend. Because it just doesn't matter. Like, we're just pumped. And if you don't get it, then you just don't get it.
Right.
And I don't know how to, there's no words to explain it. This is, to me, this is baseball.
Yeah.
This is what people talk about when they talk about the romance of baseball. It's different. It's just different.
Yep.
Not that it doesn't exist in other sports. Sure, it absolutely can. I'm not trying to say that, but it is, I'm just saying it's alive and well in baseball, and things like this. They kind of remind us of that, where, there are times when you kind of feel like this kind of stuff doesn't happen. I mean, sure, the best part of this would have been if he just would have been here forever. But this is the next best thing.
Right.
So, man, I just can't be excited. What do we have coming up here today? First off, Jason Mackey, that's going to be the big thing. We're going to talk to him about McCutchen. We're going to talk to him about Bryan Reynolds. I know that we keep saying we're going to avoid this, but when I was talking to him earlier this week, he was like, no, I think we should. All right, let's do it. And some things have kind of changed on that front, and not the way we all assumed it would change. But also he put out an article about pitching this week, which is very interesting. And if we can get to anything else, we have a couple other questions we'd ask him, but I'm looking forward to this, and as I'm sure, you guys are too. But also, when he's off here, we'll kind of talk about those things amongst the two of us. International signings are today, which is why we're actually in a tight window, because there's some things happening for Jason. He has to get some articles out, and it's all based around international signings, of course. And but then there's one more thing, and then we'll talk about this later, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Robot umps, what's the actual term for it? Automated strike zone, however you say it. It will be used in every AAA park this season. And so that is going to be something that we're going to discuss too. And, I don't know, full episode here, full slate of things to talk about this week. But mostly focused on, I wore my McCutchen shirt and we got on here, and first off, I'm cold. Second, I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, you can't see it anyway. So I have 3 of them that have just been sitting in my dresser, refusal to get rid of them. And so I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to keep them. He's a bucko forever. I've always thought that. I still think that. And now this is confirmation that he will be again. And with no question, you know what I mean? You come back full circle,
right?
Then it's no question you're a bucko forever. So anyway, right. Just kind of looked at him. I think I said at one point, well, I hope I can fit in them. Hope they still fit. We're okay on that front. Happy to announce.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. That usually doesn't happen, right? For anyone.
Yeah, I would not fit into my McCutchen clothes anymore.
So, I know I just talked a lot. And I don't know if this is where we just stop and wait for Jason to connect with us here, or if you've got anything else here to start us off.
No, I mean, not really. I'm excited, and I know everybody's excited. This is actually, for a change, it's a good time to be a Pirates fan. Just got to we got it right this time.
Yeah, like I think so. And I'm sure Jason's going to go down this path. Very interesting the way that this happened, and
yeah.
I will say, I'm glad that they responded. The Pirates, meaning that responded the way that they did to this situation. And man, to me, there was never a question. This has been a fit.
Yeah.
It was a fit last year, but I even said 3-year deal last year. You know what I'm saying? Now it looks like this is a 1-year deal, but by all accounts, and Jason may confirm this in his conversation, I've heard him say it more than once, it's more likely he sticks around for 2024 than it is he gets traded in 2023. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's not what they're doing here.
Right.
So this is, go ahead and allow yourself to feel good about this one, Pirate fans. Seriously, go ahead.
For real.
You're allowed to just go ahead, even if it's for this weekend and next week, and then maybe, when it gets time, but go ahead and feel good about this one. And then just let the other things, when they start to tick you off again, just wait for them. Just enjoy this one while it's here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the pause button, and we're going to wait for Jason to connect. And so we'll be right back with you guys as soon as he's on here. And we're back here. We got Jason here with us from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. I did not expect to be here talking about this. Well, I expected to be on this podcast because we agreed to it. I didn't expect to be looking at a welcome home Cutch banner at the bottom and talking about Andrew McCutchen coming back. And I don't know, maybe that's the theme of this offseason. I didn't expect blank. Like, I expected them to do some stuff in free agency, but I didn't expect Rich Hill. I didn't expect Cutch. I don't know, maybe it's me, but it's been it's been a wild ride, wild past couple of days too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there's a lot of things this offseason that we've kind of we've talked about McCutchen a lot. But, in the back of our heads, we knew that was never, or we thought that was never going to happen. Yeah. And I read your article from, I think it was Saturday morning, about how it came about. And I think that's probably part of why we're so surprised about it. I certainly didn't see that sort of thing coming. You want to kind of walk us through a little bit of that and how this did happen?
Yeah. You and me both. I'm usually pretty transparent with people, or I try to be. I wrote a thing in a mailbag, I think 2 weeks ago, saying this was a relatively dead issue. And when something like that happens, I get a question in a mailbag. My process is usually, okay, well, it's a valid question. I'm going to circle back to some people who would know and who generally haven't steered me wrong. And the consensus I got back was, it'd be a super fun PR move, but there's probably not a baseball fit. And there really hasn't been any active discussions about it. Okay. Well, that leads to the piece you referenced. And, at that time, that was true. Around about January 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there. I don't have the exact date, but so Andrew McCutchen sends a text to Bob Nutting. And that's the way their relationship is. They text each other and basically says, I want to come back. I don't want to come back for a crap situation. I want to make sure it's something that like works for you guys. Don't lie to me. Clearly, Cutch is asking the Pirates to be straight up. And he said, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I've got other opportunities too, but like, this is what I want to do. I would like this to work out. So nutting. And this is a little bit of a defensive Bob. I'm trying to make this not whatever. He doesn't like the medal. He doesn't like to, throw his weight around with Cherington or whomever. Calls up Ben, says, look, Cutch wants to come back. We need to figure out if this is a fit. Don't shoehorn him in. Like, we don't want to insult the most popular player in, since Barry Bonds, basically. And so, like, talk about it. And a day before I broke the news about the signing, they had coffee at a place in Warrendale, like a public place. Can you imagine?
I can't.
It's not Ben Cherington and Andrew, but man, those two look really familiar.
I literally said something to my wife about it. I was like, just imagine walking into a coffee shop and just ordering your coffee, looking over, trying to find a seat, and you see Ben Cherington talking to Andrew McCutchen. I'm not sure how we didn't know about this before we did.
That's exactly. And look, I know the name of the coffee shop and I can't say it. Like, it's one of those things you get told in confidence or whatever. And like, they want to keep it secret. I don't know if Cherington does like business out of this coffee shop or McCutchen listed or what. But, it's just funny to me that happened. Now, I think the only coffee shop I've ever gone into and seen professional athletes there with Patrick Hornquist and Carl Hagelin in a Cranberry Starbucks. I think it was Cranberry. It was up north somewhere. But yeah, it's just wild to me that story didn't get out and those two talk about it. But so they met for a while face to face and basically said, let's go. We can make this work. Cherington loved the idea. Clearly, I'm not breaking any news here, but it's a big fit for the Pirates, like off the field. They could use his veteran leadership. It was cool for me on Friday because I've never seen the fan base that universally and genuinely excited about something. Like, everybody spent this entire winter getting various forms of pissed off about what they did, and we can sit here and debate like Rich Hill or Austin Hedges or whatever. Like, you sign Cutch and people were like, okay, well, if Cutch is good with it, I'm good with it. Yeah. If Cutch is going to sign here, like, they must be okay. I'm going to a game. It's all like, cool, give them a chance. I don't hate what they did this offseason. I think it actually could work. I think they could actually develop some young guys. I think the Cutch move really makes a lot of sense. I think he can still play. So anyway, that's sort of how it came together. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a little bit left in the tank.
For sure.
And I kind of noticed one of the other things that you mentioned was one of the things that I kind of got said to me, well, they'll trade him to a contender because apparently, he wants to do this thing. And I'm like, hey, from what I'm reading, man, and from what you said, it's more likely he stays another year than it is he gets traded. And I don't know if I'm not even going to speculate, whether or not this is it or whether there is another year or whether he'll say it or not say it. At this point, like, I don't care. We can Cutch is back and let's just sit in that for a minute. And to me, it's something I said before you came on in this episode. If you don't understand it, like, there aren't words to explain it to you. It's just that it just means that to Pirates fans, and it doesn't have to make sense. So that's kind of it. But man, I had some questions on here that like about, do you assume it's a corner? You've already answered all these things. So
I can go on. I can blab about other stuff. I mean, no, the trade thing is an important aspect of this. Seriously, like when that went down, like I have to be careful about what I say and don't get myself in trouble. But like I spent a lot of Friday on the phone with various people chasing down the story that you read on Saturday, right? So like we get out there that Cutch is coming back. Okay. Then my next step is to sort of get context around like, what does this mean? What does this mean for the Bryan Reynolds trade? What does this mean, as far as a potential trade, team building? Like you could look at the McCutchen thing and think that they're going to flip them. I've gotten no indication that's what they want to do. I think it's the exact opposite, as you said, Josh. Like I think they want to, this working would be at least Cutch finishing the year here. And then you evaluate. If Cutch wants to play another one and this worked out great for both parties, have him again. If Cutch doesn't want to play, just because he doesn't want to play and he'll be 37, okay, that's cool too. I wouldn't rule out a trade only in the sense that, like, I think Cutch could be playing well. I think a contender could want it. Now, if the Pirates are out of the race, and like, let's just say the Mets, for instance, they're doing really well. Like, you can see them as a World Series contender. They really want Cutch. They need an outfielder. Like, they're calling the Pirates on Cutch. The Pirates would be jerks at that point, I think, for holding on to him. And I think and hope the fan base would be like, you know what? If he's got a chance to get a ring, go get a ring, man. Go get a ring. I mean, I'm excited for this storyline. I'm excited to cover Andrew McCutchen, but I mean, the dude deserves a chance to try to win a World Series. If that means 2 fewer months in Pittsburgh, like, I can accept it. I can get down with it. I hope that's the outcome. I mean, I hope they're winning and he plays enough of a role here that that's not a factor, because that would be a lot of fun to cover. But I think that's how a trade would eventually coalesce.
I think it's something that, I mean, and we've talked about this a bunch, of the fact that there's such a lack of transparency between the fans and the decision makers, that I think that if something does go down this path, that's going to have to change. And it's going to have to be very transparent about what is being discussed. And maybe if the Mets call, I would like to see and hear that they did go to McCutchen and say, hey, the Mets are calling. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Because I think even if McCutchen is down that road saying, I think this is it, and I think I could see him saying, no, I think I'd just rather stay home. If that's where his desire is at that point. But I just think that's, I like what was said. We'll cross that bridge when it comes.
Yeah.
And I just hope that somehow they're transparent about it to let us know, like, hey, we had discussions with him about this, and we weren't going to trade him unless he was okay with this trade and things like that. So,
right.
I don't know.
Some more transparency would be welcomed on all fronts. Believe me. I understand the way Cherington is wired. It is certainly not atypical when it comes to MLB GMs these days. I understand the way Shelton is wired. It's certainly not atypical for managers and coaches. Mike Sullivan is the exact same way. I covered him on Penguins. He doesn't want to give a competitive edge for anything, but like, I think there needs to be a point where those speaking on behalf of the Pirates realize the situation they're in. Like, Travis Williams needs to be out there and speaking on behalf of the Pirates organization and connecting with fans. That's not a personal shot at Travis. I just think that, like, Pirates fans are looking for that right now.
Absolutely.
When stuff is bad, which it has been for the past couple of years, the biggest, heaviest hitters in charge, like, you need to hear from one or both of them, preferably. It's long overdue for Nutting to talk. And again, I'm not somebody who just relentlessly bashes Nutting. Obviously, I get accused of the exact opposite, but the transparency comes in. Like, you're not making any great sweeping statements, but I think it carries weight when somebody of importance just says the basic stuff. And that's what you're talking about with Cutch. So, I think Cherington can handle that. I think he's perfectly capable of articulating what they're doing. I do expect that to change. But to stay on the Cutch topic, let's just hope it's not one and that he stays here. I think that'd be the most fun for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was just looking over some things too. And, just thinking about all the different things that McCutchen, and like, this is part of that. If you have to explain it, then you probably will never get it. But just thinking of all the different things that have happened during his time here and the things that we remember, and we've all got stories and stuff. And I've seen some things shared, and like the time when the tarp flew up, the video came up, and like him and Sean Rodriguez went out there. And I was like, if this doesn't just like think of like all those little things that you remember. And then for people who've had off the field things with him too, I mean, it just means more than baseball. And I would love to continue to talk about McCutchen, but you did allude to one other thing that's possibly impacted or not impacted, and that's the status of Bryan Reynolds. Yep. And so, the first thing is, we got Cutch. Oh, great. That means Reynolds is gone this afternoon. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of that. Before we even get to that, I do have one question, because, and I don't know if this is maybe old news or not, but I think it's something that was kind of said. And my math is telling me that the Pirates could have offered around 90 to 100 million in that 6-year deal. John Heyman's thing says over. You had reported before they were about 50 apart. There was talk that Matt Olson was a comp, which was 168, even though admittingly it was lower than that.
Yep.
I can't imagine you use him as a comp at 168 and not and be at 120. Like, I would imagine that's closer to 140, 150, which is why I landed around 90, 100. And so I've heard you say it's around 80.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe. So like how where's my math missing here? How did I get wrong in this? I understand there's a difference of 6 and 8 years. That's the big difference. And so when I think that, I think, well, where are we at? Where's my math at?
Yep. Okay. So let's start with square one. Let's start with the Pirates offer. And we can logically get there. I've done the gymnastics and the writing things down, and I'll try to do them here live. But so we know more dollars than Hayes, and we know fewer years. They have him under contract for 3. So they're not going to do that. 4 wouldn't really make sense either.
No.
Let's think about the number for a second. They've gone basically incrementally 10 million each time for their contract, right? Like, I think there's like a 50, and then Kendall for 60, or Cutch was the 50-ish, and then you get to Hayes at 70. Do we really think the Pirates are going to jump from 70 to 85, 85 million? Like, they've never jumped that upper level of a contract more than $10 million. So I put that at about 80 million. 80 million, 7 years, it's a little low. 80 million over 5 years, potentially. I settled on 80 over 6. And frankly, there's some intel there. I've yet to have somebody tell me that that's wrong. So I've kind of run with that. From the other side, the ask, yes, Matt Olson is a comp, but because somebody is a comp, it's also not meaning like we asked for that same contract. Like, there is a realization that right now, Reynolds has not done as much as Olson did like prior to his contract. Like, if he waits, that 168 could happen. As of now, sort of subtract back what that would be, you get in about the 130, 140 range. And that's where I would point you to in terms of a disparity. I wrote at one point that there was about a $50 million difference in the two sides. And I certainly stand by that. I've yet again had nobody from either side telling me that that's wrong. Not that that's why you report things. I mean, it's certainly reported through the front door. But what I'm saying is, if you report something incorrectly, people will tell you about it and yell at you and say, you screwed this up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, stuff that has come out, I've not heard that it's wrong. So normally I would hear if it's wrong. That's what I'm explaining that for. So I think that answers your question. That's sort of a roundabout way of doing it, but that's a pretty good sketch of what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question, just to stay on the Reynolds topic. Do you think there's any way that the Pirates and Reynolds can bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Or do you think that's over with?
It would take a lot. The relationship has been very much compromised, if not fractured at this point. And that's not with Reynolds. Because one of the mistakes that has been made here is attaching Reynolds' dissatisfaction with sorry to cough. I don't have a cough button on my computer. No, Reynolds asking for a trade is not because he thinks like Pittsburgh is stupid, hates Derek Shelton, hates his teammates, thinks the plan is flawed, all this stuff. Like, Reynolds asked for a trade because there's a contract that he thinks he's worth and can get. And he's not wrong. I get it. Like, if he continues to play ball the way he's played ball, he's going to put himself in that Matt Olson position to get, 150, 160 million. Is that going to happen here? Well, the team's offering 80 million over 6-ish, and like Sean Murphy is a comp that I wrote in that same story. They're like, you can make that case. I really don't have a problem with that. But you're just singing out of two different hymnals. So that's where it started. There's basically the realization or a lack of trust or whatever you want to call it that this is probably not a great fit. What that looks like midseason, I don't know. At this point, I have a tough time seeing them trading Reynolds. I don't think it makes sense. You don't want to give into a player at this point, in my opinion, and just automatically trade him when you don't have to. I think it maybe sets a little bit of a bad precedent. I don't think the offers are what they ultimately can get, so keep them. And I think they will. If you get to the trade deadline this year and the Pirates have won some games and you're starting to see some excitement here, like butts are in seats, people are buzzing, and you reopen things with Reynolds. There's been some time passed, some goodwill built up. Everybody's happy, blah, blah, blah. Reynolds is hitting 330 with a 950 OPS or something like that. You say, hey, man, you want to revisit those talks a little bit? And the Pirates slide a little bit to Reynolds' side. Maybe he slides down a little bit and says, wow, okay, this is really fun. Like, Cutch is telling me if I take a little bit of a discount, like this is what I can be. This is the role that I could play here. Man, that's pretty sweet. Okay, yeah, let's do it. So anyway, I think it's possible, but I certainly think that there are some things that need to happen, some stuff they need to overcome. And I mean, honestly, for those reasons alone, I wouldn't trade Reynolds right now. I just don't think you can. Like, I'd rather see, man, what if they get off to a really great start and like all this stuff's really fun and like Reynolds and McCutchen wind up being buddies and Cutch starts talking to him about, dude, I mean, I get what you're saying about the money, but like I signed a discounted deal here and I had a great time. We won some games. Like, I basically can rule this town if I want to. I'm a freaking celebrity anywhere I go. Like, that's pretty sweet. I'm going to have a statue outside of this ballpark one day, or I should. Like, that's better than some of the millions you might leave on the table.
Well, and even if there's not those words, watch how this city and watch how the crowd treats McCutchen every at bat, every time he does something well. And it has to be appealing to a player to see that. And I just think that if, you do something, maybe that's sort of part of the realization as well, is like, man, look what they're doing to a guy who stuck it out. Look, to a guy who brought it here. And, maybe there's some of that. When Judge was looking at San Francisco and everything, and, I listened to a lot of different people, and I heard the argument to say, if you're going to be a legend, it's not going to happen anywhere but in New York, like for Aaron Judge. You've already been that here. And that will never, you'll have to start all over somewhere else. Like, if you go there on a huge contract and you don't do well, there's no forgiveness. If you stay where you're at, there's some leeway, there's some forgiveness there. And you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe there's some of that happens, but it's hard to tell at this point.
I will say this, man, that if you start, let's just take those raw numbers. Like, I'm not propping them up as accurate. We're just saying marking points, 80 million, 140 million, right? Or let's say 135. Cause I think, whatever. I said roughly 50 million, right? So we'll go 80 and 130. Let's do that. I mean, if they each move 25, is that terrible? I don't think so. Be one heck of a contract. You're giving a little bit, but you're getting a lot of the things you're taking or you're seeing. I mean, but I think some of that is contingent also on this going well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If the Pirates wind up in a situation where a bunch of guys get hurt, maybe including McCutchen, they're taking it on the chin. Things are miserable. Like, we're not in a situation where Reynolds is going to be like, yeah, sign me up for more. Let me take less money to stick this out. It's going to be like, screw this. I'm getting my money.
Right.
So I think that's why very important to play good ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And that's, part of that is what we've been talking about forever. Like, just put something on the field. They've absolutely done that this offseason, is they've just put Major League Baseball players out there instead of what it is. I'm trying to look through my Reynolds notes. I had one more thing. I have some things on here that really have changed. I mean, just that sort of thing, that kind of argument of talking about if a trade is made soon, where, I still don't see it. I don't think they want to trade him, and I don't think that's a thing right now. So I'm just kind of looking at some of the questions I had about the timeline being completely moved if Reynolds is moved, which is something that we talked about last week on this show. And I don't know. I still see the asking price as a sign of they're asking for this because they don't want to move him.
Yeah.
And I still think that if a team is desperate enough in July, I think this asking price could still be met.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Juan Soto type deal. Like
the report that came from even said that it was an exaggeration.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Not to mention Juan Soto was traded along with another valuable player.
Right. I've talked to Charrington about this before. Like, one of the reasons why early on in his tenure, they would target a lot of high upside younger players and basically shop for volume is because you don't take that value and put them into like top 50, top 100 guys anymore. And his contention was, he's like, go look at the number of top 50 or top 100 guys that get traded right now. And, it's just like, it doesn't happen a lot. I mean, Soto is an easy example because it did involve that, and it's going to include that. But I mean, the Pirates cannot let Reynolds get away for, upside guys that flop. Like, you just can't afford to do that. If the Pirates trade Reynolds and they get, let's say, 2 top 100 prospects and a third piece that like looks good, I think fans will understand that. The right guys, the right presentation, you say, okay, look, this guy was, in Texas's system, not Jack Leiter. I don't think that would get it done. But I mean, like, you could say, like, look, this is a top 100 guy, his top 3 prospect in their system, whatever. You can make a case. But yeah, I just, you can't do it for these, like, getting on volume, the guys in single A with high upside. You can't do that. You have to get more proven players. And it's not necessarily a Juan Soto thing, but like, your asking price is that rare trade that includes multiple top 100 guys. And that's what the Pirates want. That's what they've maintained for this. And that's why, because you have to be able to get return on these guys. The likelihood, like linking back to that Charrington conversation, it's just not real high right now.
Yeah, and even when it is, you talk about the Soto one that came along with Josh Bell, the Trey Turner, Max Scherzer. It took 2 of them in order to get Keibert Ruiz and help me out here, the pitcher.
What's it for?
The Dodgers to Nationals, that trade. I can't think of his name.
Can't think of his name either.
Yeah. That's all right.
What? Okay.
I can't believe I can't think of this. Hold on.
Are we talking about the Soto trade?
No. The Soto and Josh Bell, when they got C.J. Abrams in that, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Trey Turner, Max Scherzer traded to L.A. It also took 2 players.
Yeah.
To get that type of return.
Google search at this point.
Yeah. What'd you say, Jake?
Josiah Gray.
Yes, and Keibert Ruiz. In order to get those 2 players, you had to give up the 2. Like, you just don't get those kind of players for one guy right now. It certainly doesn't happen unless you're 2 players that are, Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, right?
Yeah.
or Juan Soto and Josh Bell. Regardless of what they did when they went to San Diego, it looked
right.
better on the one side. But yeah, Josiah Gray, so it just you're not going to get that kind of a return for somebody. I think it's interesting that the Pirates are or at least the report is that the Pirates are bent up on, or if that's the term, on like a legit, like, ace quality starting pitcher. And I guess my reasoning behind that is, like, I see a lot of pitching depth right now that is on the way. And I understand that maybe the upside is a bunch of 2s and 3s, but like, that's what we had in our previous playoff runs. And I'm not sure I wouldn't be more okay with the fact of, like, if I've got 5 2s or 3s without a bottom end of the rotation that's bad, why I wouldn't actually want more bats right now if that's what's, like, available. And so I'm not just sure. Now I want to pivot that into the pitching stuff, because prior to McCutchen stuff, you had a conversation with Oscar Marine, and that there was some pitching information. And I know that Jake got super excited seeing the word changeup. So that's Jake's pitch. But, we have some questions about some of that. Jake, I'll let you kind of ask the first question on that because I know you want your questions. You like pitching. So I don't know if you want to go Roanzi or where you want to go with this, but I feel like there's a lot of information.
The article just alluded to basically shaping and controlling the changeups of these guys. And I've always said one of the second best pitch in baseball is a good changeup because obviously the first best pitch is the located fastball. But then to play off a changeup, and so many guys don't have changeups right now around the league. I think it's a crucial pitch, and you've got to talk to Oscar. So like, how's that all going? Say with like Roanzi, Ortiz, De Los Santos, like those guys, like just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So when those guys left, not so much Yuri, but Rowe and Ortiz both talked about when we go back to the Dominican, we want to be able to polish our changeups and get these things to improve. And I didn't take note a lot of Ortiz's changeup, and I probably should have. But in talking to Oscar, like he was saying, that's certainly the better of those two pitches. The issue with Ortiz is getting it more consistent, being able to throw it for strikes in the right counts. With Rowanzi, it's more like his would lag behind a little bit, but he's also made a ton of progress, Oscar said, this offseason with it. I like Rowe a lot. I mean, his slider is terrific. His curveball, I think, is very good. He's throwing 97, 95 with location, somewhere around there. He could really use the changeup, though, to get somebody off the spin stuff. And so I like what I'm hearing with that. A lot of times I feel like young pitchers, they end up learning how to pitch by having a changeup. And it's not always pitching isn't just I'm going to throw the ball hard past somebody and then I'm going to throw a curveball and they're going to be so bewildered because they've never seen a curveball that's as good as my curveball. Like, that's not pitching. I look at it from a catcher's perspective where you should be able to take your fastball, add and subtract a little bit, manipulate that pitch to get a result, not necessarily to strike everybody out. Put the ball on the ground. Weak contact is great. I want you to be able to set up the third pitch in the sequence by having them not hit the first pitch in the sequence over the fence. So a changeup comes into play there because it's going to get me to my third pitch. And guys can learn that. And if for somebody who's throwing a four-seamer at 97 and you don't have a sinker or other movement with your fastball, a changeup's a great pitch. It looks like a fastball if you can match the arm action. Some guys can't, some guys can't. I mean, when I pitched, I was lucky I was actually able to do it. I threw a pretty good changeup. I couldn't throw a spin pitch to save my life, but I could throw a changeup. Other people, I've seen them, they grab the ball and then just spike it at 40 feet. You can't control it. So, I mean, I'm glad that both of those two seem to have some handle on it, but you also need to, it's a very easy pitch to detect if you don't throw it the right way. If you're slowing your arm, your body, fiddling with it in your glove, like that's going to be a tell. It gets hit over the fence. So we'll see what they do, but I like what I hear so far.
Good. So you also mentioned the possibility of a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
I don't mind a 6-man rotation, especially if you got a bunch of young guys, and especially if you have, like Josh said earlier, you have a bunch of 2s and 3s. Like, I think a 6-man rotation could work in Pittsburgh. Let's just hear your thoughts a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think it could work too. I think it makes a lot of sense based on, having a guy in your rotation who's going to be 43 in March.
Yeah.
Having people in your rotation like Rowe, they're still going to be looking after his arm as they should. I thought it was interesting when I talked to Oscar, I asked, like, how do you guys see Johan Oviedo? He said, we still see him as a starter. I don't see Johan Oviedo based on how he finished the 22 season going to the minor leagues. I'm not sure what he has to benefit there. He was really good. Mitch ain't going anywhere. Brubaker ain't going anywhere. So Velasquez, they've told us, is a starter. So, I mean, do the math, right? Like,
right.
What do you do at that point? That's 6. You're talking about a 6-man rotation. It makes sense. They've been very conservative in terms of like tacking innings on guys, and like a 6-man rotation over time is going to limit what he'll throws, it's going to limit anybody in that rotation, whether that's Ortiz, Contreras, Burrows, Priester. It makes a lot of sense for me. And I want to see Ortiz start games, or not Ortiz, Oviedo. I want to see Oviedo start games. And then, you let him pitch. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to curse them, but I mean, you're probably going to have injuries or something like that. When they happen, you can call up Ortiz, you can call up Priester, you can call up Burrows, whoever is pitching well.
Yeah. Or go to 5 at that time.
Or go to 5. Yeah, exactly. Maybe off days work out that way.
There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of guys to call up, both on the bullpen side and the starting side. I mean, starting off with Ortiz, because he's been here and he's had a cup of coffee. And I had Oviedo, like, as I'm looking through, I'm like, man, I don't like this, but I have him going to AAA to start off. But I thought it was just because they were going to take it easy on innings. A 6-man rotation does the same thing. And it also does that thing for the rest of the 5 that are involved. And so I do see that as an option too. I don't know what it would look like early, since you don't really even need a 5-man rotation that early in the season, but it might be interesting to see him go for a couple of weeks down. I mean, he does have an option. I don't think that you're going to, at some point, I don't think you're trying to save that option for next year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they're going to care to use it. But I don't know. And the bullpen alone, seeing how the bullpen's going to shape up. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I don't know if Yuri starts off the season in Pittsburgh just because of an injury and the fact that he has options. And I question how you make sense of Yohan Ramirez and Colin Holderman. And even Dowry Moretta thinks a little bit easier because he's just brought in, but I don't know, there's not enough spots for all those guys to be included. And so I don't know if you've heard, I talked to Gary a little bit over Twitter, and he's like, yeah, why don't you ask your guest here today how the team looks at Colin Holderman? Because I had Holderman saying, like, to me, I was like, he's got 3 options. He's the easy one to go down. He's the same age as Yohan Ramirez, but he said, you're going to change your mind. So change my mind.
I will. Colin Holderman ain't going down unless Colin Holderman pitches his way to AAA. I mean, they like this kid a lot, man, and as they should. I forget what Oscar said he was throwing in a side session. It might have been like 95 or something like that. I mean, that's going to project to like 98, 99 with movement. He's a dude, to use the baseball term that I kind of laugh at sometimes. But I mean, I think Holderman could have a real breakout year. I don't expect him to go down. A lot of time, this was also an interesting tell for me. When back in December, they brought some guys into charity events. They had one batch that included like David Bednar, Jack Sawinski, Quinn Priester. Another one had JT Brubaker, Mike Burrows, Chase DeYoung, and Colin Holderman. A lot of times you won't do those things with guys that you're going to put down to the minors when they want to be up here. You've got a pretty good picture of what the role is. For the same reason, I would be surprised if they got rid of Chase DeYoung. Like, I think he's a part of their bullpen and a pretty important leader. I think the Pirates see Holderman as an important part of their bullpen as well. I almost called him Eric Holderman for some reason. I don't know why. Colin Holderman.
Getting the old waiver claims mixed up there a little bit with Eric Handhold.
Oh, that's right. That's what I was going. Okay. I was wondering what had infiltrated my brain and infected the Holderman thing. No, Handhold. Okay. All right. So no. I mean, seriously, guys, like, you talk to anybody around the Pirates about Holderman, like, it's real positive. I mean, they're not going to keep him with the major league club if he has a crappy spring. Like, they'll clearly send him down and they want the best thing for him. But I have a tough time seeing that happen, and I think they want him to make the team.
And I was mostly basing this off of finishing the season injured, you know what I mean? And so I wondered how that was going to go and whether or not he was healthy. But as I said, he said, no, your mind's going to be changed. Well, we still actually, Yohan Ramirez, what have you heard there? Because I thought that it was, we had actually had a conversation before, and there was something saying how he was sneaky good. And Jake said, I don't think he was sneaky good. I thought he was good.
Yeah. I mean, he was solid for them. And somebody I think they want to be in the bullpen mix. And I think this is going to be one of those true competitive spots that you were talking about where you can't fit so many guys. You have to look at how he pitches. You might actually be evaluating him in the spring, because I do think I was a little surprised to see them go with Dwayne Underwood Jr., Robert Stevenson, see them through. I feel like the skill sets there are a little bit redundant with Yohan Ramirez. Refresh my memory, guys. It's in my notebook here somewhere. Does he have options or not?
He's got one option left, I believe.
He has an option left?
I'll double check that. He has one option, yeah.
Okay. Then, I mean, there's your answer right there. Like, he's going to have to pitch the lights out to stay with the club to make it a no-brainer. But, I mean, if you can jockey him, Cherington has talked about that for a couple of years now. Like, they need to manipulate the edges of their roster and try to expand their pitching staff. And if you've got an option, you're very valuable to them. It's a crappy place to be as a pitcher. You don't want to be going back and forth that much, but that's what I look at. They're going to have a pocket of guys that they have to sort of yo-yo back and forth based on roster rules. And Ramirez, I guess, if he's got an option, would fit that.
Yeah, and Chase DeYoung does not, and Robert Stevenson and Dwayne Underwood and Harleen Garcia, obviously those guys are not options to move back and forth. Will Crow has one. I don't even see that happening. I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but there's not enough room.
To option their PA rep. I think that's,
yeah, exactly.
One of their best bullpen guys. I mean, they ran Will Crow's wheels off. That's
100%
last year. Like, he was a good reliever. He can be a good reliever. They just ran him down. He was nothing. He was a cloud of dust by the end of the year. Like, I don't blame that on him, or I don't blame him for that. They use him appropriately. I think Will Crow will be in the bullpen and will be a productive member of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt from our side either. We haven't had this problem. It's been, well, how are we going to get rid of this guy and actually put somebody in the game? And that's why I think that this really hasn't been as bad as I thought it could have gone, as far as the offseason goes. With that said, outfield, I don't understand a team that has more outfielders than infielders. And when McCutchen becomes official, I can't see anybody but an outfielder getting off that 40-man roster. I can't imagine adding a 10th outfielder. I'm pretty sure there's 9 right now. Yeah. And I don't understand that personally.
I don't even know how they're going to get playing time for everybody at AAA, to be honest with you. Like, forget fitting everybody in the majors. I mean, they're going to be sending some guys to AA just to get them reps, but you're also going to run into a situation where there's people at AA you want to play, or people who were at high A last year that you're bumping up. It's a bit of a weird situation. It would not shock me at all if they wound up trading Cal Mitchell or Travis Swaggerty or Smith and Jigba. I mean, not that the return's going to be any great shakes. Like, you're probably just going to, swap out a minor league lottery ticket, outfielder for a pitcher or an infielder or something like that. But I mean, they can't get all these guys playing time.
No, and if there's no spot for them, I think that's probably where you say, oh, let's, cut your loss there. But it's not like, I mean, if you're better for it right now, I don't see why that's still not a viable option at some point. You know what I mean? I mean, Ryan Valade, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking with him.
Well, I mean, you got to figure too, they had a guy in a spot at the beginning of the off season. Like, calculus has changed. Connor Joe came along. Not that, he's going to be a world beater, but he's probably better than Valade. And, obviously the Cutch thing had a weird trajectory to it. So that would be my pick for the guy to get DFA'd this week when they announce Cutch.
Yeah. So I want to move on to catching. Do you have, what's the Roberto Perez deal? They wanted to play winter ball. He played 10 games of winter ball. That season's over. It's not like they can see more. If we haven't heard anything, does that mean there's nothing there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a non-issue at this point, as far as I understand it. Like, I think I don't know whether there was concern about his medicals. I don't know. But they had Hedges and they had not seen Roberto Perez, and I think they viewed Austin Hedges as a better defensive option, primarily because he's been a better defensive option and probably a more sure fit to actually stay on the field. That's not an intentional criticism of Roberto Perez, but at the time where they had to make that decision, they hadn't seen Perez in games. I'm looking here as we talk, and so he did get 10 games, hit 143. in winter ball. I mean, I like Roberto Perez a lot. I thought he was really good for that clubhouse. I was hoping they'd bring him back. I didn't think Austin Hedges would be a possibility. And I also would understand if you're looking at Hedges, because I like what he's done defensively, handling a pitching staff, pitch framing, all that stuff. I like what he's done. He's also stayed on the field. And that's been an issue with Perez. It's now 3 straight seasons ended early because of injury. Like that's concerning, because I mean, if that happens again, like what do you do? It turned into a revolving door of bad last year, and that's not helping Henry Davis or Andy Rodriguez. At least if you bring in Austin Hedges, you say, okay, well, we're basically hitting with 8 because this guy, we can't really count on him doing much with the bat, but we know he's going to be able to teach Henry or Andy Rodriguez, like, this is how you catch in the major leagues. This is how you meet with pitchers for scouting reports. This is what's expected of you from a veteran starter like Rich Hill or whomever. Like, this is how you work with a major league umpire. This is how you do this, that, and the other. But it's kind of tough for Roberto Perez to do it if he's rehabbing whatever season-ending injury happened again.
No scenario where you could say we could bring him in, have the 2 of them. One of you get 2 starters, the other, or actually, if we go 6, one of you get 3 starters, the other one gets 3 starters. We got offense on some days. You don't have to play every day. Maybe they pick according to what they like, and it's not a roster situation. If you add Tyler Heineman, you still need to move somebody off the 40-man. So yeah. I just feel like, is it that? Is it he's not signed yet, but Jorge Alfaro's out there, and I just saw a video of him hitting a walk-off hit, and I mean, he looked like a pro wrestler, and I was like, I could take a little bit of that. Like, the dude's jacked and excited. Like, let's get a little bit of that. Share some time, because at some point, I mean, they're not going to start Andy Rodriguez there. He's the only other one on the roster. So, I don't know when you get to a place where you say, let's bring in someone else, because it's, to me, the same thing as going with Tyler Heineman, except if Roberto Perez gets hurt, then you go with Tyler Heineman. There's depth there. Yeah, I mean, it's just you wipe all that clean when you have Austin Hedges. If you just admit there's no offense, you have Hedges, you pair him with Heineman, and then whenever Hendy, I'll call him that, Henry Davis or Andy Rodriguez, whenever they're ready, you bring them up and you pair them with Austin Hedges. And then you probably tamp back Hedges' starts a little bit, and you bring in the young kid, and you have them work together. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's just, you would hope you have more of a sure thing than you do with Roberto Perez. Yeah, I certainly would like to see someone else, but I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like it's Tyler Heineman's backup job. I don't know how soon you're going to get Hendy to show up. I will say, though, I mean, something that we had planned to talk about, and I don't know how much more time you have here, with the AAA going to the robo umpires. I mean, I'm starting to really like that for Pittsburgh if we do have problems with receiving, because those go away. Hey, tell me you can block and throw and hit, and you're good. Yeah. Only problem is they have guys that actually are good at receiving. And I guess we'll see what that translates to with Henry Davis and Andy Rodriguez, right? But I mean, that's a big part of Austin Hedges' game. And to be fair, like, I think Austin Hedges is going to have that. He's going to be able to do that and not have that affected. I think one area that I see as a potential trouble spot is you have Henry Davis and Andy Rodriguez operating with robo-umps in AAA, and you don't have them in the major league. So, like, pitch framing is not that big of a deal down there. You still need to find a way to get that guy some work on it before they come up there, and, like, that actually counts in the major leagues. How long do you think? How long does that count? This year, maybe next year? Yeah, maybe 2 years. Yeah. Maybe 2 years. So that's what I'm saying, though, looking forward. Like, Hedges is here now. I'm good with that. I actually don't hate the signing. And, so for now, I think that's a good thing. I think that, like, as we project to, like, Henry Davis, if that's Henry Davis's knock, which I felt like it was, right? He wasn't that those, it's not baseball IQ. I think they're good on that. I think they're good on his arm. They're good on his bat. I felt like it was the other aspects of catching, which if those go away at the major league level, but then by the time he's here, those things are irrelevant. He can still be a great catcher. I mean, if that's the rub there, but Yeah, certainly not for right now. That is
Yeah.
interesting if that's something that's lacking there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are at about 47 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of your time there. I know that you've been kind of pulled everywhere today and everything, but man, we appreciate you coming on. And we had no idea when we first talked that we were going to get to talk about Andrew McCutchen.
That's right. That's right.
So what a little bonus there. But hopefully we can have you on again as the season goes and get to talk, but I appreciate it.
You got it, guys.
So thank you. And we're going to hit pause here. Jake and I will come back with a little bit extra here, but for then we appreciate it. Jason, thanks for stopping by.
All right. Thanks, take care, guys.
And we're back here on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. That was a good time, man.
Yeah, that was cool to talk to Jason.
Yeah. So obviously appreciate him coming on. We had talked early in the week, last week, and got him coming in here and everything. And then the Cutch stuff broke and it was like, holy cow. And then today it seemed like with the international signing, there just was a bunch of things on his table. And so that he had to take care of. So like our original kind of time that we had agreed on, he sent us a message saying, I don't know if it's going to work. And so like, we just tried to work it out as the day went on. It was kind of a little bit of an adventure. Obviously appreciate him still working that in and making it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, he's been busy specifically since Friday when everything kind of happened with McCutchen. A couple things to react to a little bit that kind of surprised us. Going into it, the Holderman thing surprises me a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the fact that I was tipped to that, I'm not as surprised. So that is interesting, though. I am eager to see how that plays out, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this bullpen more than just today. So I think I'll save some of those things. But what kind of stuck out to you, something that maybe surprised you there today that you learned that maybe you had a different opinion on?
I mean, I'll be honest, that comes to the catching situation. I thought for sure we would be looking to add another catcher and not just roll with Heineman again. And he clearly alluded to that's probably not going to happen.
What surprises me about that is that I think that if you roll with Heineman, you're sending a message that you see Andy coming soon. Mm-hmm. Or Henry. I like Hendy. I like that. And that to me, I think surprises me that that's the message being sent. I agree with it, but I'm surprised that I agree with them on this. I didn't see that.
I didn't either. And I always looked at too, like, if you get somebody else and you split the time with Hedges and they are playing somewhat well and you're ready for Andy to come up, you can always trade them.
That's kind of where I was at too.
Even if you get low, like super low minor league prospects, like that may not amount to anything, but
yeah, if it's not numbers. An injury,
sometimes it's a numbers game.
Yeah. If it's not an injury that's opening this spot up, yeah, I'm really surprised as well that there's not at least something. And maybe that was part of the fact that they actually liked Heineman and the minor league deal was, hey, let's do this for now and let's let spring figure it out. And sure, you might get into spring training. I mean, right now Heineman's invited to spring training. You might get into spring training and somebody could get hurt. Hopefully, you know what I mean? Hopefully not. But if it's a 60-day injured list type of deal, or like I said, we haven't really heard anything on Max Kranick. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. Maybe there's something. He's the one that was hurt, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, there might be something that works itself out with Heineman coming up, and you don't have to have a corresponding move. If somebody's on the 60-day, you open up a spot on your 40-man. Mm-hmm. He could just take that one, and then it might work itself out. Where if you sign somebody today, you're going to lose somebody. You know what I mean? Right. So I guess I could see that being an alternative reason of why you go with Heineman. I go with Heineman because we don't want to lose that spot today. It might figure itself out down the line. Or if somebody comes in and they're not doing well at all. In that case, that works itself out too. Hey, we didn't know if this was going to work out or not. Apparently it's not. Cut him, bring up Heineman. Those kind of things I feel like could work themselves out. And that's probably a part of this that I wasn't thinking of going into this. And to be honest with you, one of those questions, the question of that catching position, I wrote that question and I had that ready for him. We just talked about it last week a little bit, but I had that ready for him prior to the McCutchen thing. This McCutchen thing really does, thankfully he's coming. It does create more problems.
Yeah, I can see that.
Good problems.
Good problems.
Good problems, in my opinion. I welcome those problems. Yeah. But it does create some other like organization things that are, hey, like I said, this is another outfielder. If you were planning on keeping Valade because he's been here this long, like maybe we see how this thing plays out. You can't keep him around. I mean, you're already going from an entire, how long ago was it that we were saying there's absolutely no right-handed hitters? You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden it's, we have Andujar, but then Connor Joe comes into the picture and now McCutchen's into the picture and it's like, okay. I mean, there's a feasible chance that all three of those guys are on the active roster on opening day.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, because your opinion is different than that.
Because I don't see Connor Joe making the opening day roster,
and I see a lot of people that think it's not even a question. You know what I mean?
I think he's had his time to prove himself, and he never did. I think he's 30 years old.
Is he 30?
He's 30 years old.
Yeah, but it's a little different though. He does hit lefties, and that's what we need. I would venture to say Connor Joe has a better chance of being on this roster than Miguel Andujar.
Andujar's 27.
That's beside the point. I don't think the age comes in that case. You're talking about a depth guy who's going to play against lefties. Yeah, we're not talking about a starter.
I don't see why Andujar wouldn't be that. For my opinion, I would take Andujar over Connor Joe any day of the week.
Well, and I think that's the question that gets played out. But I could see both of them playing when there's a lefty on the mound. I could see all three of them, McCutchen, Joe, and Andujar, in the lineup against a left-handed pitcher.
See, I don't think you platoon with Jack Swinsky. I think you just got to let him play.
I think he gets days off. He gets days off.
Absolutely.
And if his days off should be against left-handed pitchers.
Yes, but I don't think he should be in a platoon situation.
But if you give him a day off against a right-handed pitcher, that's foolish.
Sure.
So which means that the only opportunities that the guy behind him gets to play is against lefties. I think that's ridiculous for that to be a guy like Cal Mitchell or Kanan Smith.
It could be Ji-Hwan Bae.
Also another lefty.
But he's hit lefties well.
But he hits lefties. I think Ji-Hwan Bae I think his path is in the infield right now. And I know that a lot of people say he's my starting center fielder. I wonder how that changes at this point.
Right.
But, there's that whole thing. So let's move in. I was going to bring up somebody else, but let's move into this. The arbitration numbers are out this week. We said we are going to follow up on that. So while we have a chance to do that sort of thing, some of these things, these like little cut and dry things, we didn't want to spend our time with Jason on these sort of things. So Zach Thompson was traded to the Blue Jays for a minor league outfielder. I'll be honest with you. I know that you said like, hey, I'm looking him up. He's fast. He's got a good arm. I don't care.
Right.
To me, I don't care. This was I don't know why it's an outfielder. We just talked about all the outfielders we're going to have in AAA. I don't see him being in AAA. He's probably going to be in AA, I guess. I don't really know. Anyway, he was traded. Chavez Young. One of those. Pirates signed Andrew McCutchen, 1-year deal, $5 million. We talked all about that, and we'll never stop talking about it. Avoided arbitration with 4 of the 5 eligible. Technically, 5 of the 6. Andujar was early on, right?
Yeah.
So JT Brubaker gets $2.275 million. Mitch Keller gets $2.4375 million. Is that right? 4375. Was that the number?
Yeah,
Jeez.
no, that's not a number.
I mean, it can't be a number. There's an extra number in there somewhere.
Yeah. Probably 4.75 or 2.475.
Yeah, or
Probably
three. Yeah, somewhere in there.
probably
Anyway,
fat-fingered the
fat
three or
fingered
the
something
four.
there. Dwayne Underwood, 1.025. And Robert Stevenson, 1.75. That's right around where all the projections were. I think Keller was at 2.4. Brubaker was 2.3, which is close. Underwood was at 1. He's 1.025. Stevenson was at 1.9, so he came in a little bit low. Not surprised there. They're going to have to go to arbitration with G-Man Choi. He was estimated at 4.5. Okay? So I don't get hung up on the difference between the two, and I guess that was probably a question that maybe would have been good for Jason. Do they know before they submit where the other camp is? You know what I mean? Do they even
I
know?
don't know.
Because that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody always says, I can't believe you're going to arbitration over this much. But they're going to arbitration over, another player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what, 800,000-ish? 750,000? Like, that's another player on your roster. A young player making league minimum at 700,000. So this is enough, but also let's talk about the offers, because he was projected at 4.5 and the Pirates offered him 4.65. They went above. They went above the projection to say, nah, like let's do this. I feel like that's a hat tip to you, buddy.
Right.
And then you came in at 5.4. I question the decision here.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I feel like
I-
the Pirates
I'd
did their
take him.
part.
Yeah, I'd take him to arbitration.
Oh, 100% the Pirates are going to win that arbitration case.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
let this thing ride out. If he wants to take your offer, then give it to him.
Right.
Don't go to arbitration. Otherwise, go to arbitration, because you're probably going to pay him $4.65 million. I do not see G-Man Choi winning that case, and I 100% support. I mean, dude, the Pirates, how much have we said, well, they cheaped this one out. This was a bad move by the Pirates. I can't believe they tried. Nah, they went above this time. Like, they did. I got nothing here.
No, that makes sense.
Do you think G-Man Choi's maybe pushing a little bit to, the writing's on the wall. You just signed McCutchen. His playing time just got hit.
Sure. Yeah.
If he was planning on playing against left-handed pitchers, he's not anymore. Because McCutchen's going to be the DH.
Right.
I see McCutchen DHing, and I see Andujar and Connor Joe in the outfield when there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound. Carlos Santana's a switch hitter. He'll be playing first base. I'm just saying, if the Pirates are planning on winning any games, or winning more games than they lose, even if that's what their plan is, then I don't care about your feelings and whether or not you're a left-handed hitter and you can do it. We've got the guys to have a better lineup.
Yeah.
We're going to do this, and we're going to win more games because of it. And I see, Castro's a switch hitter. Ji-Hwan Bae can hit both, so those are unaffected by that. But you could potentially have 3 right-handed bats in the outfield with the DH and McCutchen DHing, and we know that he's depth plus DH. Like, he's going to play outfield, but he's also going to DH. He's going to play a lot. He's got some milestones to hit. I see him playing in 135 games, 140 games, 145. Who knows? Like, it's going to happen. The fact that the Pirates have a DH now, it looked like that was going to be the 2 first basemen, but I don't know that it is now.
Yeah. You G-Man Choi is going to get games because Santana's not young.
Oh, absolutely not.
So he's going to get his fair share of days off.
And it depends on how
G-Man
many
Choi will
lefties
get
we
those.
run into. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's going to happen. There's going to be days off. There's going to be days on. If we're facing a lot of lefties, then yeah, G-Man Choi is going to play against some lefties. If we're barely facing
Why
lefties,
lefty? He's a left-handed hitter.
right, and he's not going to face left-handed pitching.
Right. You're saying, okay, I had you backwards then, because I thought you were saying that he's going to play against lefties.
No, if I'm saying if we play against a lot of left-handed pitchers, he'll see some left-handed pitching. If we don't, there's no reason for him to ever see a left-handed pitcher. The only way is like, hey, we're having trouble getting him in because we're facing a lefty every night. Well, then he's going to have to play. You know what I mean?
I got you.
But like if we're not that's the same thing with Jack Swinsky. Like I don't see that as a platoon unless if we're 50% right-handed pitchers against us and 50%, then yes, Jack Swinsky's going to play against lefties. If we're 25 and 75, that's not a platoon. That's giving him days off against left-handed starters. Yeah. And that's where I'll give him the days off. And I understand the argument like, oh, he's too young to do that too. No. To be honest with you, I'd rather just win. And he'll get his opportunity. It's sophomore year. He'll when he becomes so valuable that you want to keep him out. If Sawinski's hot and there's a left-handed starter coming that's not, let's say Carlos Rodon. He's lefty, right? Did I just screw that up? He's lefty. That's what I thought. As soon as I said that, I was like, crap, is he right-handed? Anyway, if it's Rodon, like Jack Swinsky's not playing. Unless he's red hot right now, he's not playing today. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And maybe this works itself out. Maybe Andujar or Connor Joe are absolutely terrible. And there's no way we can carry both of them. Then, okay, now I see more of a challenge because to me, the opportunity to give Jack Sawinski days off and to play and some of those other guys. And there's going to be days that Sawinski gets off against righties because there's no way we're going to face 50-50. I mean, there's just more righties than there are lefties.
Right.
Especially in our division. You know what I mean? There's just more righties in there. I know that it's a balanced schedule and it's not quite, but it looks like there's not a whole lot of lefties to go up against us. I think you carry the two righties if that's the case. But I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but to be honest with you, I'd rather just win. I'd rather have a chance to win more games. I'd rather put a lineup out there that's better.
I get that. I just don't think that includes Joe.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously spring training answers a lot of questions, right?
Kind of. Listen, I put a lot of stock in
You're right.
Diego Castillo last year.
But he started off okay.
Spring training. He did.
They got caught up with. I mean, we know Kevin Newman hit 1,200 that one year, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know it was.
If I'll be bagging groceries in a couple of weeks.
All right, let's. What else did we have here? Let's kind of wrap this up. International signings were announced today. Go look them up. We're not going to take a bunch of time on that. These guys are a long ways off, and not that I don't think that that's important. But go look them up. They're out there. I don't really have a lot to say about it. Robot umpires. I alluded to this when we were talking to Jason. AAA, all robot umps this year. Automated strike zone where you can challenge it. Not really robot umps calling every one of them, right? But there is a challenge system with the automated strike zone where you have the ability to challenge. Receiving is not dead at that point, right? I mean, I don't know how many challenges you get. If it's unlimited, I mean, it doesn't take long. Receiving's not dead, but I think that in this scenario, I think it changes a little bit. If you're saying Henry Davis probably doesn't need to stay being a catcher, I don't know that it doesn't change. If that comes to Major League Baseball, I think it's less important. I don't know if Austin Hedges keeps getting work. Right now, what he does is valuable. When they can challenge it, I'm not sure. Yeah, and maybe it still is. I haven't.
What the actual rules are, you know what I mean?
Right. They can challenge it. That's what we know, right? If he steals, but the thing is getting those ones. Can you challenge it as a catcher and a pitcher? If he calls a ball on what you thought was a strike, you know what I mean? Because I think there's two ways to that.
Right.
So I don't know, and I don't really know. Like I haven't thought about this. I haven't thought about maybe we'll get into that later. But what I do know is it's in AAA right now, and I think it's going to have an impact. And Jason kind of said that too. He's like, well, now you're not going to have guys working on that, and then they come up here where it matters, and how's that affect? I think they still can work on it. It's a challenge system, right? So you can still steal some strikes. And if you're able to do that and you get challenged and then you win it, that's actually a good thing. That's a sign that you did your job, because they called it a strike when it was really a ball. And so I think that there is still a little bit of there's still a little bit of a scenario where you can see how that plays out and where it's, hey, that's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I know we went a little bit long today, but obviously we wanted to fit that conversation in the full conversation, and that, we expected that to go a half an hour. I hope Jason's not mad at us for taking an extra 15 minutes, but I feel like it was okay. Once again, appreciate him. His Twitter was on the video there, but if you aren't watching on the video and you're listening, go check. His Twitter is at JMackeyPG, Mackey. Go check him out on Twitter. Obviously, a lot of news breaks from those guys, those beat writers. And so, obviously that's where we get a lot of our stuff. We depend on those guys that are there with the players and with all the sources and all those sort of things. And so, go check him out. Obviously, Post-Gazette, if you have access to that. He writes for the Post-Gazette and things like that. So I'm looking at my list here. Did we cover everything we wanted to? Was there anything else that we had on here? We talked about our ARB guys. I think we're good to go. Am I right?
Yep.
Did you have anything else? You like your change-up talk?
I did like my change-up talk. I like change-ups.
Yeah. So I think it's just funny to me because we talk about it enough, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then that's all we have for today. Guys, next week, kind of take a look. We'll be in person next week.
Yeah.
Coming up to visit. So we'll be in person next week, and then we'll see what things. I think we're going to make some Hall of Fame ballots if you want to.
We're going to record a little bit early next week, though. So
yeah, if any news breaks,
breaks on Saturday,
Friday, Saturday, early Sunday, if anything breaks, we're going to miss it because I think we're recording on Friday.
Yeah.
So
early on Friday too. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, but looking forward to it. Looking forward to hanging out with you, all that good stuff in person.
I'm excited
Andrew
to see
McCutchen.
the new office.
I'm
excited to see the new office set up.
A little bit new here. I don't know if you can. Yeah.
We'll get it next week.
Yep. Got a couch now. It's feeling good.
Yeah.
It's a place to be. No. Cutch, man. Cutch is back.
Cutch.
I wish we could have just spent the whole hour on Andrew McCutchen, right? I got him. Do I have the same thing? I've got the same thing back there. I've got the same one back there. I wore the Cutch shirt, but I'm cold. So, I don't know. It's the bucking one, right?
Mm-hmm.
The old, yeah, there it is. Yeah. Cutch is back. And like I said, if you don't get it, you won't get it. Show up on opening day and watch what happens. Don't sit next to me, though.
Man, I hope I can make it up there.
I had a friend of mine who's a Reds fan who just texted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, congrats on Cutch, man." And I said, "Thanks." And I'm like, "This is a Reds fan, right?" He gets it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I said, "Thanks, man. It's been a wild day at that point." And he said, "I think it's great for Pittsburgh, and I think it's great for baseball." And I said, "Yep." There's been a lot of people outside of Pittsburgh fans. I got a lot of texts from fans, from non-Pirate fans, right? Yeah. And just people saying, "How's your day today?" with a wink, you know what I mean? And it's like, dude, my day's great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? A Phillies fan who's a good friend of mine, right? I've brought him up before. Obviously, they got to experience McCutchen, and he said that how much he loved it. You know what I mean? He's like, I would have welcomed him back to Philly. And I'm like, I know. That's how it goes. A lot of positive vibes from everywhere. I did have a couple people say, like, how's that? Does he think he's going to win there? Like, I don't. We're not even talking about that right now.
Yeah, he just sent me a text and he just said, "Cutch."
It's been crazy.
It was this year.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, dude, it has been a lot of fun. And obviously, our family's had some really wholesome moments with Cutch and everything like that. So we have, all the wholesome feelings and things like that. And all that stuff is is really cool for me. And so it's a lot of positivity around Bucko Nation here, and just very excited. This is the last ride. I don't care how, I still think he's a good player. He's certainly not the MVP player he was when he was here.
Sure.
But I still think he's a very good player. I think it's a great fit. I'm just not worried about the impact of, maybe losing at bats for some guys. Like, I just think it's time to invest into the major league roster. And I think that what this means is if you want at bats, you got to earn them. I think this pushes everybody in the situation to be better, because now you're not just going to be given at bats because we want to see it.
Right.
I'm going to keep rambling. We're probably going to keep talking about this. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yep.
You good?
I'm good.
Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!